Hey everyone, welcome to Podcast Insider Special Edition, and I've got with me Sam Crowley. He's from Every Day is Saturday Podcast for Motivation, Inspiration, Success, a very long-running podcast. Sam, what are you at, 18 years?
Yeah, what's funny, I didn't even know I was recording podcast. I was recording audios back in '05.
Yeah.
I didn't have a podcast feed. I was just I left the corporate world and I wanted to, I mean, this was 2 years. You remember, you're like a dinosaur in this space. This was before the iPhone ever came out.
Yeah.
So it's like, you got an iPod, I didn't know how to get that stuff on there. So in 2007, I got my podcast feed and I guess I became a real podcaster, but I was throwing audios out there the latter part of '04 into '05. But I think pretty much having a podcast feed, 17, 18 years now.
Yeah, be honest with you, you're probably one of, I don't know how many shows are 17 or 18 years old, but 100, 200 maybe. I could look back to it's not that many, and I look back to when I started, and I think there's 5 that were, and some of them post shows just once a year, just to say I'm still active so that they can keep their longevity claim.
Yeah.
So and how often do you put out an episode?
Well, that's a great question. Every day for a while, and then in December of '24, let me just frame. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. So I'm a professional speaker. So I've been on stage with the Tony Robbins of the world, the Les Browns, Bob Proctor, people like that. And I also do coaching and consulting. But in the end of 2024, I went into ministry. So I'm working for a local church here in Cincinnati, and my daily podcast just went on hiatus. And then funny enough, I recorded an episode today. I'm getting back into it to get back into the daily vibe. And so what I noticed was, and I don't think I'm, telling anybody, but the more you record, the more listens you get.
Right.
I mean, that was my experience, So I was getting the Blueberry. That's what I love about Blueberry. I know we're going to talk about Blueberry, but I never saw statistics before, when I had other hosts and, that were really reliable. And last year I looked at my dashboard, I was getting 700,000 downloads a month, which for a guy like me, I podcast in my car from a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot every day. That's kind of like what I do,
Yeah.
700,000 downloads. I was looking at my Blueberry dashboard. I'm like, it's insane.
That's impressive.
But I know there's people that have more downloads than me, obviously. Yep. But when you podcast from your car with just a passion to share a message I want to get an 8, because I know when I was in the corporate world, I was just longing for does anybody know what it's like not to do the 9 to 5? Is this crazy to want to make every day Saturday, And that's who my avatar, it's that guy or girl who just like, am I crazy? Am I nuts? Is there anybody else that thinks like me? So I just jump in my car and record on my phone. So now I'm getting back into the daily vibe again with the podcast.
That's the daily from your car at Dunkin'.
Yep.
And those types of downloads, it just goes into. So what is your kit? Just so someone's going to ask, are you just recording into the phone or what's?
No, I got a Shure MB88 mic that plugs into my iPhone.
Okay.
And the acoustics in my car are
fantastic.
I think they're
amazing.
Yeah. it's so silly.
Yeah.
So I just airdrop it to my Mac, bring it into Audacity, add the intro and outro, and I'm done. I mean, it's like, it's 10 minutes to record, 2 minutes to add the intro, outro. I don't get caught up in titles and descriptions. I don't want to say they're not important. I just don't major in that stuff. Yep. I just want to get the audio out.
Yep.
And away it goes into the, podcasting space.
Off into the ecosphere.
Yeah.
So at some point, you decided to become an affiliate. How long ago was that?
Yep. 2014.
Wow. So 11 years ago.
Yep.
And you've had some success as being an affiliate.
Mm-hmm.
What do you attribute that to? Because, we have so many folks that sign up for our affiliate program. And for those of you that are not familiar with our affiliate program, I guess I'll preface this with an explanation. It doesn't matter if you're a podcaster or not. You can sign up to be an affiliate. The affiliate program is unique in that if someone signs up for a $12, $20, $40, $80, or $100 a month account, when that account bills within 60 days, you earn at a minimum the amount of the subscription, which is 20, 40, 12, whatever it may be. And we cut that to you via PayPal. But then we do a bonus at the end of the year based upon volume, whether you're at 5% or 7%. And again, what's the beauty about this affiliate program is as long as that podcaster keeps podcasting, every year annually you'll get a bonus check with that. So when you started in 2014, how long did it take before you actually saw? And we were probably only paying every 3 months or 6 months back then. We weren't paying as often as we do now. How long before you started seeing some revenue?
Oh, not long. I mean, within months. I mean, it wasn't. First of all, I didn't even know when to expect it. Here's why I signed up as an affiliate, because I'll give you a perfect example. And when I sell on stage, I sell how to create a podcast package, and it's anybody can do the tech. I mean, it's information online, but I want them to understand what it means to have support. Okay. So when I had previous podcast hosting, I never had support.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
So the worst thing in the world is your audio doesn't play on iTunes, for example. Okay. What do you do? Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention names, but
sure, go ahead.
Mike Dell was a rock star. Okay. He got on email with me. He got on GoToWebinar. That's how old Mike and I are. Okay. Mike and I were getting on GoToWebinar, and he was walking me through. So I spoke on stage with Tony Robbins one time, and I sold this how to create a podcast. So I immediately had like 150 people join my 4-week program where we take them from start to completion.
Sure.
So there's 120 people signing up for Blueberry. And I never had the confidence, Todd, to recommend a podcast host, because here's a guy like Tony with an implied endorsement to me that I trained all of his coaches on podcasting.
Yep.
And then all these people that bought at his event, you immediately lose credibility if you sign up for a host and your feed doesn't work or things like that. So they're like, well, I want to go with Podbean and Buzzsprout. And then I said, so I got on with Mike, and I've messaged you about this as well. I said, Todd and Mike, walk me through why. Like, why do they need? And he said, because if they don't control their feed, eventually they could be out of business.
Right.
That resonated with, like, I didn't need to know anything more than that. So everybody signs up. They get their WordPress. They connect PowerPress to that. Like, I walk them through it. And I've never had an issue. And we're talking about thousands of people I've recommended to Blueberry. I've never had somebody say, well, reached out to Blueberry, never heard anything, never. And I'm talking 11 years, thousands of people that have come and gone through my programs that never had an issue. And that I need that as somebody who recommends podcast hosting to know that they're going to be taken care of, because something inevitably is going to go wrong.
That's right.
And we're dealing with tech.
Yep.
Okay.
Something breaks.
Like the feed's broken. It's not playing. Well, open a support ticket with Blueberry, and as soon as you do that, I know you're going to be in good hands. So that's why I did it.
Yeah, I think we find very, very rarely, I mean, maybe once or twice a year, Mike and Dave and Sean are 99.99. Every once in a while I'll get an email and someone will say, hey, something has come up. And I'll be like, Mike, what's going on with this customer? Let me see the ticket history. And we go through it. And either that's one person was handling another. So very, very, I mean, like very, and I said, okay, this person didn't get an answer, fix this. And it happens immediately. But again, it's once or twice a year something comes up. So for me, I know that Mike and the support team, when someone calls, and believe me, we get people now that call that don't know how to right click a mouse. And I say that jokingly, but it is kind of true. The tech level is lower. So, Mike and Dave and Sean are there to step people through and help them. And I often refer to it as calling a friend. And now when we go to events, if Mike's at the booth or Dave's at the booth, people are coming up almost hugging them instead of, who's this other guy standing over here? Who's me? So I'm like, all right, go ahead, be the rock stars. So, that is one thing that really does make us different in that regard. So I'm glad that you recognize that. And I understand it. When I was starting out and did my sponsorship with GoDaddy, I had a direct line to the VP of marketing at GoDaddy. And if something went wrong, and then I had the CEO's number I could go to if something else didn't happen. And if I had a podcast listener that had an issue, boy, I was Johnny on the spot to say, fix this. And within like few hours, and that's the kind of, that's when you can do that and have that, if you tell the audience, hey, if you're having a problem, let me know. It builds your credibility. So you realize that. And of course, you're dealing with a very high tier, very, that group wants stuff just to work. I fully understand that.
Well, something else, though, Todd, now that everybody and their brother seems to have a podcast or want a podcast, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like you just said, you can't right click a mouse. That's a lot of the people. Like I have a membership group where we talk about messaging and podcasting and things like that. And there's a lot like Mrs. McGillicuddy in Lincoln, Nebraska. Has no idea how to click them out. Like these are the next generation of podcasters because everybody believes they have a message to share, a story to tell. They don't have any tech experience. They can't just be thrown into, click here to join and here's the AI driven instructions on how to get through it. Like these are our next generation of podcasters. Not everybody is a Joe Rogan. I mean, not everybody is a tech support team.
I think though we see on the 18 to 30 crowd, don't get me wrong, those folks are very tech savvy. And, and they have their way around there. And sometimes challenges, they're on their mobile device. They don't even have a computer. They use an iPad or something or, some sort of tablet.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of a different things. But I'll be honest with you, the podcasting space, now you got to do video. And it's, something I just learned coming back from an event we were at is that some of these creators are thinking they have to do video. I'm like, listen, you're a brand new creator. So let's get your audio, let's get your voice heard first, and then we'll worry about spending money to add video later. And I think that's something that probably needs to be shouted at the top lungs around the community at this point too. And we understand the value of video. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
And we support it.
You got to find your voice first.
Yeah, and you get that battle rhythm down, not without worrying, have to look at the camera and figuring out, looking over here and getting distracted. So. So having run this Top Motivational podcast for so long then and having access to all these people, it was just a natural thing then say, hey, you should have a podcast as part of your business. And I think that's true for most creators. If you're doing a business show, doing a tech show, doing a sports show, you've got sports fans listening. You've got other, that genre of listeners there. And it just, to me, it's a natural thing to say, hey, you should be a podcaster. If you are, here's who I recommend. Here's a promo code. Use it. And of course, then going back, you've probably gotten an annual check then from us too, I assume. I didn't even look at your numbers, so I don't know.
Yep, always comes around Christmas time. Perfect timing.
That's right. It's a Christmas present, but it's also for some of the creators that we've worked with. We try to send it early enough so if you need to send Sugar some tax money, you can.
I don't know where I rank in the pantheon of Blue affiliates. But for me, it's an added, nice little bonus to get at the end of the year. And I don't think it's chump change. I think it's definitely four figures. So.
Yeah, we've got some that as high as five figures on annual bonuses.
Wow.
Yeah, and so they didn't get there from year one. It took 4 or 5 years of promoting, and it's just one of those things. It's cumulative, so it's an affiliate program that's unique. Believe me, I always get down to December, and I'm always saying, okay, is there enough money in the PayPal account to pay the annual affiliate bonus? And we're looking in there like, okay, we get the kind of the preliminary numbers. I'm like, okay, there's enough in there to handle the payment, because we've kind of moved a lot of our processing payment into just pure credit card. Not a lot of people are on PayPal anymore. So I have to always make sure there's enough in there to pay the bonus. What do you think then, besides the support? Obviously, you use the product. Any other things that you think has led to the success of the recommendation? Do you feel it's just been it's not even really a pitch, it's just a natural thing that you tell, right?
Yeah, for me, I walk everybody through their Blueberry dashboard, and I tell them not to major in minor things, because like any dashboard, you can get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
Okay. And don't be emotionally attached to numbers. I mean, if you have a great day, great. Who wouldn't want to have just an amazing day with listens and downloads and things like that? But understand that these are metrics that are certified. You can be confident when you share these. If you ever want to go the ad or sponsorship route, these are legit numbers. It's not just pulled out of thin air. Like them or not, those are the numbers. Okay. I'm sure they could inflate them if they wanted to, but these are really the numbers of what they are. And I just walk them through what are the most important metrics to look at, 3 or 4 to get started. And then you can go down the rabbit hole if you want to. Easily submitting to Spotify, easily submitting to iTunes, easily like that podcast feed URL, because it's part of your domain. It just makes so much sense. So I always have them go to Amazon, iHeart, Spotify, iTunes to start. Yeah. And then you can go nuts with the rest of them. But I'm like, I walk them through how to submit that feed, copy, paste, very simple to do. And then they get it. Then they can go in and go nuts in the dashboard. But I walk through every new client through that Blueberry dashboard to show them how easy it is not to be intimidated by all these different tabs and things like that. Not that there's a lot, but not to be intimidated by that stuff. And then feel comfortable that the stats are what they are and not just some made up number.
The Apple Podcast thing now is kind of cool because now you can auto submit just one click. You don't have to go to, it's easy. Spotify is easier. And you're going to see from us in the coming weeks, coming weeks, maybe a month, where we're going to have a checklist system that allows people when they come in to have a more fluid onboarding, so that, because we kind of hit them right in the beginning. What's your show name? And people go, oh, I don't know. And they get stuck. Yeah. They get decision paralysis. So we're going to kind of smooth that out so they can come in later and say, okay, I made a decision on a show, name, description, and have a little better flow coming in the end. We're going to get them to the point where we're going to automatically publish their episode 0. This is coming soon, so that we really get them with this checklist to basically, they are a podcaster. All they have to do is officially release episode number 1. So that's coming. We've learned, because we can see where new podcasters kind of get hung up when they're onboarding. And I think what you'll see too is we're going to not dumb down, but we're going to create a new episode in the dashboard. For those that are dashboard users, we're going to make that easier as well, without a whole bunch of, what are all these choices I have? We'll put that in an advanced tab, and if they want to dig around in there, because we understand too that we made this thing, especially with PowerPress. We got companies that are putting 600-700 shows in a single WordPress install, and I wouldn't want to manage that personally, but we've made it so that they can keep it organized and publish and keep the stats in the right podcast. And all they got to do is click one button wrong and it ends up in someone else's stats, but that's their fault. We've made it so that they can scale it. But for a single show, all they got to do is write their title, write their show notes, upload the media, publish, they're done. And that's the beauty.
It is. And it follows my motto of do simple better. Keep it simple, do it better than anybody else. So if I can record in my car and get those, I think I'm pushing 30 million downloads.
That's amazing.
And it didn't come overnight, obviously. No. But if I can get 30 million downloads from my car in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, it ain't the tech.
Right.
And what Blueberry has done is really just made it so simple. I think when I came on board in 2014, I didn't know what I didn't know. I just thought it was so genius that you could have a plugin in WordPress, create my feed, and I'm done. I'm done. There's no more, I don't need to worry about anything. Because now everything is indexed in Google.
Right.
So every title of every post I have ever made is searchable online, that people can find it through Google. They can find it through the podcasting platforms. I just love it. You didn't even pay me to say anything. Like, I'm legit. This is what I tell my clients. It's like, focus on your voice.
Yeah.
Blueberry takes care of the podcast feed. Set it, forget it. You submit it one time to these platforms. Everything else is done through your WordPress.
And it's magic. It happens.
It is. It's just magic.
So, now it's interesting is about 70% of the folks do the WordPress PowerPress combination. Of course, we offer a free WordPress site for those that don't have one. They can use that if they want. Percentage do. And then there's 30% that just use the dashboard publisher. And I always say those are the customers that either on their own CMS, maybe they've got a website on some non-supported system like Wix or Squarespace or something like that, or they're in some weird antiquated company CMS, so that they can't really control their own feed. But what we find over time is people kind of graduate. We're actually going to be doing some cool things for our dashboard customers soon can't talk about that, but it's just going to be a much more enhanced experience for them with domain mapping and everything. But I think in the end, our model, when we were just in London, we were telling people say, what makes you different than, company XYZ? And we say, we believe you should build your brand on your .com, not on ours. And that you should get the credit for publishing that episode, origination of the post, origination of the feed. And Google says, oh, this is the authority on this content. And the AIs too, because we see that shows that are longer have been podcasting longer, probably yours as well. I'm now being recommended in AI results because I have a lot of this content that's embedded on my own website. And they say, okay, this is authority for this content. I can recommend, such and such.com for my personal show versus sending them over to a competitor's, example, Podbean or Libsyn, some subdomain on their website. I don't see those recommendations. I see it for a .com. So to your point, if someone's not ready to have their .com, we're okay. We can support them, but we always have a path for them to, I call it graduating to their own site, controlling their feed, controlling their IP. It's really critical. I did an interview recently with a gentleman that talked about brand building and brand ownership, and it's more important than ever to, own that piece of real estate that is a domain and a website. And I think a lot of people say, I don't need a website no more. But at this time, with the changes, the search is coming, and with the all the AI stuff that's popping up, as far as recommendations, it's more critical than ever because you don't want to be intermixed with a show that may not be putting out good information, where the AI could say, well, this is part of another. There's other things over here that aren't as good quality, so I'm not going to surface this. So I think it's super critical now more than ever.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So that, it's pretty awesome then. And not everyone's going to have a built-in big audience or have a plan. But if you want to be a successful affiliate, I think it's important to handhold a show. So if you have someone that's signed up for Blubrry and they've used your affiliate code just like you, hey, I'll help you. Because guess what that ends up meaning? That's a higher chance of success for that show. Because more than 50% of shows that start still do not make it to episode 7. So if you can give a little counseling, have us here as support, me available to, root you on and give you recommendations, then you have the chance to get to 7, get to 20, get to 2 years. And those are kind of the markers of show progression. Again, half the shows quit before 7, the next half quit before they get to 20. Usually then they'll make it to 2 years, but then in 2 years there's another big decision point. I do have a question for you. I often find now when I talk to content creators or business owners and I ask them, what is the goal of your show? And boy, sometimes I get these long dramatic pauses and they don't answer it immediately. And I think, how can you record a show today if you don't know the goal? If the goal, is the goal authority? Is the goal make money? Is the goal to build a mailing list? Is the goal to bring business in the door? If you know what the goal is, then the content creation should be a little easier. When you're doing your show, you're just trying to teach people how to get out of that 9 to 5, I'm assuming.
Mainly that is the mindset. The vehicle is to everybody has $1 million message. I really believe that. It's not some throwaway line. I really believe it. I thought I did, and I was in the middle of a bankruptcy when I started my podcast, and I was crazy to even think that I would do that. But yet here we are, 18 years later.
Right.
And so my goal is to inspire everybody somehow. Like I always say, I hope this planted a seed in good soil, and I hope it caught you at the right time. everybody has $1 million message. So that could be teaching somebody how to stain a deck. It could be teaching somebody how to speak. It doesn't matter. But what
Right.
we do normally as humans is we always downplay, oh, that's easy for me. Well, there you go. I mean, because it's easy for you, you should be talking about that. Grab a microphone, start talking. That's the real genesis of my show, to inspire people to find their voice. That's it. There's nothing else to it. It's very simple and it just works.
It's, it's everyone has a skill, has a passion. And I think, if you're chasing your passion, that just makes for easy content. You can talk about it all day.
Yeah.
And can talk about, I got a friend that does a lot of, it's a family friend, but, he does a lot of jobs when, like I needed a security door put in. I might know how to go to Home Depot and get a security door, and it would be put in, but I guarantee you it would not look as good as my friend who's been putting in doors for 20 years. And he came in and, they knocked it out in a day, and, no one's getting through that door. And if they do, well, they have to, half the house is going to be ripped down. But it is, he is an expert, and I said, yeah, you should, he said, oh, putting a door up is easy. I said, oh, it's not. I couldn't have put up the door. So you're right. Everyone has a skill and a passion and has a story to tell.
Audio.
Yeah.
I'm not a video guy, really. I mean, I go to YouTube to learn stuff. I go to podcasts to take me to and from where I need to go I listen to audiobooks. I think I'm an audio guy. And it's not just because I've always been an audio guy. I prefer to consume my content via audio. And I think there's always going to be a place for that.
For audio, for me, if I hear something, I can stop or hit the backward buttons for 20 seconds or 30 seconds. I can bang it back. And sometimes I have to listen to something through. Maybe I was kind of driving and there was kind of this kind of date. And I said, what did you just say? Or she's saying it, pop, back 2 minutes. I'm like, oh. And where video, it's not as easy to get that roll back to, you can get a fumble around with a remote control or whatever. Audio is just easy, but very, very cool. So, Seth, thank you for coming on. And Sam, I'm sorry, I mispronounced thinking about a show I was just at. Thanks for coming on and sharing. What it would be if someone's considering becoming an affiliate, what's your number one piece of advice?
If you want to become an affiliate for Blubrry, understand that I just go back to the support. First of all, it couldn't be easier to sign up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's number one. All right, very easy to sign up. Number two, be a user of the product so you can at least be that walking testimonial, that walking billboard for it. And when you do use Blubrry, you'll find out real quick. I mean, it's about as simple as it gets. And your show is secure, your feed is secure, and your client is secure in the support. So I would say do it. If you're in the podcasting space, you want to make sure that this feed is all you have. I mean, if that goes away, you go bye-bye too.
Right.
So you have the peace of mind. The payments to me, quite honestly, I know being an affiliate means you get paid. The payments to me, it's not like I don't know I'm getting paid, but I know my client and my show is being taken care of. That's the most important thing.
It's one thing that a lot of people don't realize with the WordPress and PowerPress. We designed PowerPress that if today I pulled the plug, I just unplugged all the servers, and we disappeared from the face of the planet, you'd have to find a new place for your audio files, but your show, you wouldn't have an extinction event. You would still be online. And a lot of people say, what do you mean? If you go away, this still works. Yeah, it still works. And that, I think, now, given time, if no one updated the plugin, there might become issues down the road. But you would have a period of time to say, okay, let's go somewhere else. And you wouldn't be left holding the bag. That, happens so often. And, sometimes right before Christmas, we've seen people pull the plug or say, hey, you got 2 weeks and, mass migration. We just recently had a situation where a company said, we're raising the prices from X to, basically they 10 times the cost of the service. And all of a sudden, these people just moved. They moved overnight to a new host because they couldn't handle the new price increase. So I'm not saying we'll never raise the price. We haven't had to in many, many years, which is a story in itself. But I think that, we're here for the long term. And again, if something catastrophic happened, which we pray will never happen, the plugin will work without Blueberry.com being online. And so you really won't be, with a boat without a paddle. You'll still have everything operational.
Yeah, love it. Love it.
Sam, thanks for coming on. And how can they find you? Where can they find your show? What's the best way?
Well, anywhere you get your podcast, just find Every Day is Saturday or everydayissaturday.com.
Yeah, go over there to everydayissaturday.com. I'm sure you've got the subscribe link on there. Follow. I guess that's what we call it these days. Follow on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you consume your podcast, your favorite podcast app. Sam, thank you for being on with me today.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.